The following program is intended for mature audiences.
Football fans, the time is now.
Give me a hell yeah!
For the football show you never knew you wanted. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Broken Helmet.
Coming to you live on tape on this Sunday, December 20th, 2025. Approaching the end of 2025. It is the Broken Helmet. We're checking here behind the wheel, and to get in touch with the show, you can reach us at brokenhelmetshow@gmail.com or on X at brokenhelmetpod. You can also do that on YouTube and Instagram. I don't bother. Anyway, week 17 of the NFL season is here. We've got this week plus another. That's all she wrote. The playoff picture has basically kind of established itself. We're going to be jockeying for positions from here on out. And we had a bunch of games yesterday. You're going to have to pardon my hair as I'm staring at myself here. I could not find my hat. And I said, screw it. I'm on vacation down here in Jensen Beach, a nice rental that my father-in-law picked up and came down here with the family for holidays. Crazy. It was Christmas. Kids opening up their gifts, hopped in an Uber, off to Newark Airport, flying down to Florida, and then a day or two later, we're in Jensen Beach at a pretty cool B&B where a whole bunch of families coming in, so it's fun. I don't know where my hat is. I think I left it in the bunk bed room with my kids, but I said, screw it. Let's memorialize this hair right here, the beautifulness of it, because at some point, this is not going to be here. This is going to be gone. It's like my dad doesn't have his hair. My whole mom's side of the family doesn't have their hair. You've seen Chris, he shaves, but he's running pretty thin too. So I might as well enjoy it, even though this is just a surefire mess right here. So anyway, like I said, we had games from week 17 that already took place. We obviously had the Christmas Day games, which were not great. Nobody really enjoyed them. They were terrible. The best part of that was the Snoop show, because for anybody that watched it, I'll be honest, there have been a couple of Super Bowl halftime shows that I've enjoyed since they started doing these halftime shows at the Thanksgiving Day games. And I think they might have done this last year for Christmas. I don't remember, but I have not enjoyed them. For the most part, Super Bowl halftime shows are always kind of junky. You have a good performance here and there, but most of the times it's missed. It's been like overproduced, and it's always lip syncing, and so ultimately it's just a whole bunch of fanfare. And I could do without it. There's been a couple recently that I have enjoyed. As a huge rap fan, I loved the Dr. Dre halftime show. Prince's obviously was great, but on Christmas they put together this ridiculous halftime show featuring Snoop Dogg, who a Crip and dressed out in nothing but a red Santa garment, which I don't know how that works nowadays. Obviously, he's probably affiliated, but out of it, whatever. Not a culture that I'm familiar with, but I thought that I don't know if Crips can just sit there and rock pure red without some people being very pissed off. But how can he be Santa in blue? Doesn't work, right? So, but anyway, it was Snoop Dogg, and then who they brought in? They brought in a whole bunch of people, and it was this ridiculous Christmas show that was thoroughly entertaining. And it made no sense, and I didn't care. Just enjoyed it. So that was probably the best part of the Christmas Day slate, which we saw the Cowboys come in, beat the Commanders, didn't matter. The Lions go in and lose to Minnesota in Minnesota with whatever slim playoff hopes they had on the line. Second week in a row that they had their backs up against the wall and just lost, and terribly too. As a Lions teaser better from last week, let me tell you, it was a thoroughly disappointing, albeit not unexpected end to the Lions season. I thought last week was way worse than this week. This week, they just looked done and defeated. But last week, they could have come through. And the ending to that game was crazy. Not to mention, that they gave up these Jalen Warren, touchdown runs that were ridiculous. But anyway, they went into Minnesota and lost. And then you had the Thursday night or the Christmas night game, which was Broncos. It was Thursday night game. Broncos in Kansas City. Kansas City ended up losing that game 20-13. So the Broncos end up clinching the West. And that's that. And then yesterday we had, which I'm recording this on Sunday, so we're talking about Saturday now. We had the Chargers hosting the Texans and the Packers hosting the Ravens. Chargers, I picked that team. I actually had them in a bet. I'll get to that later. Was surprised when Houston came in there and just shellacked them in the first quarter. Not surprised because Houston's defense was good, but to see the Chargers just give up 2 big hit touchdowns in the first quarter was a little shocking because I just thought they'd come to play more than that. And what was impressive was Houston just having their way with the Chargers' offensive line in the first quarter. I mean, they just tearing them up. Now, Chargers end up coming back. Great. Now we got a game. Chargers are down. All of a sudden, we get this big third down. Chargers need to get the ball back. It's Houston 3rd and something. I forget what it was. 2 minutes and something left in the game. What's up? My youngest son, Mason, here, joining the program. You want to come and say hi?
Sure.
Come on, join in. Show the world who you are. This is Mason. You got a pick for them? We got a whole bunch of games today. You like any team? You picked a game a couple weeks ago, and it worked out pretty well. You picked the Vikings, right? And the Vikings ended up winning. They were underdogs. So you got another one?
Huh?
You can look at the games here. You got a team that you like that you want to give the public?
How about, let's see,
Nope, those games played already. There you go.
Panthers.
You like the Panthers. Panthers over the Seahawks. You heard it here first, folks. Panthers over the Seahawks.
Actually,
That's a big
Dolphins.
one. Oh, the Dolphins? What, Panthers or the Dolphins? He'll give you 2. We'll mark them down there, and we'll see how you do there.
Okay.
All right. So back to the game at hand. We're talking about the Chargers trying to come back. They need to get the ball back in the end of the fourth quarter there. 2 minutes, or maybe it was under the minute. And they stop them, only to see a flag on the field for a penalty downfield for, pass interference or whatever it was, when the wide receiver basically ran into the D-back and they threw a flag on it. And of course the internet went crazy. And my thoughts quickly are this. Was it, by the letter of the law, a penalty? I think so. Again, not a rules expert. There's enough of those. But I'm pretty sure, it was contact downfield. The wide receiver ran into the D-back, so I don't know how that impacts the interpretation of the rule. More so than that, the play was not by the penalty. It wasn't by it. It had no impact on the play, whether it was Stroud looking downfield or the ball already being sent downfield and going to that specific wide receiver. It was completely outside the play. Had nothing to do with it. So why throw the flag? Why throw the flag? You could throw a flag on every play. Holding, interference, offsides nowadays, because everybody jumps. Everybody jumps. Why throw it there? It's the referee's discretion to throw it. And I think when you see this big movement of the NFL is rigged on social media, you're seeing it because you see these subjective penalties come in. They might be objectively decided, but subjectively thrown, right? You don't have to do it there. It doesn't involve anything related to the play. So eat the flag. Chargers get the ball back, and who knows what happens. Maybe nothing. Maybe the game ends up the same way it did. But that's not what happened. That's not what transpired. Out came the flag. That was the end of the game. So the Texans get the first down. They get the 20-16 win there in Los Angeles. Packers, battle of the backup quarterbacks, right? Malik Willis on one side. Then you have Snoop Huntley on the other side. Snoop's all over. holiday weekend here. Holiday week, right? It's not a weekend. It was Thursday all the way now, so it's holiday week. Snoop's everywhere. Packers hosting the Ravens, battle of backups. Packers end up losing this one 24-41. Ravens basically just said, Derrick Henry, we're just going to run you all game long. I mean, 200 yards, 4 touchdowns. Ridiculous. Frustrating beyond for people like me who drafted Derrick Henry with his first fantasy football pick. 14-team league. I was 14. Henry was there. How can you not pick him, right? The more egregious pick in that one was when I followed that up with Brian Thomas Jr., which I wish I had my soundboard. Just big bomb sound there. Brian Thomas Jr., terrible. Derrick Henry, I was still happy with. And he just had a terrible year. Not great. But if I had him this week in championship weekend, sure as hell I'd be happy with the 50-burger that he dropped yesterday. 4 touchdowns, 200-something yards, plus the 41-24 victory for the Ravens. So the Ravens stay alive, which good for them. It's over today if the Browns don't beat the Steelers. But at least for these 12 hours from that game to the next, or not even 12 hours, but whatever it might be, the Ravens' hopes are still alive. The Packers, it's like watching a car crash right now. Granted, they'll get Love back, and they'll look better. Watson, who looked like he was going to be a goner to the injury bug yet again a couple weeks ago, had a monster week last night, especially or monster week last night. Yeah, I said that right. Again, on my fantasy bench, because I didn't know what to expect with Malik Willis, plus I didn't know if he was fully recovered. He didn't know what to do. I had been starting him for the couple of weeks once he got back. He was doing really good. He gets injured, put him on the bench, and then I see him with 20-something points yesterday. You just, my fantasy, I'm in 2 title games and a third-place game, and I'm going to lose all of them. No. So Love comes back, and the Packers will be okay. But even with Love back and them being okay, they don't look nearly good enough to get the job done, especially compared to where they were, earlier in the year. Obviously, the Parsons loss is big for the defensive side of the ball, but there's no consistency, and you're losing games at home. Granted, Derrick Henry had a monster game, but one would think that the coaching staff would think they would probably feature the dude, right? Versus Snoop Hundley, who's coming off, the bench with 1 week to prepare, on the road. What are you going to do? They'll probably feature Henry, right? They'll probably just give him the rock a ton. So let's make sure that our defense is stout enough and we have a game plan in there to try to, stop the bleeding. They didn't have it going into the game, and they couldn't do it in the moment either. So there you have the Ravens staying alive. And the Packers have got to look at themselves here as they go into this final week and just figure out what are we going to do? They're going to be the last seed, right? I don't know if it's guaranteed, but I think it is that they will be the last seed in the NFC. And so they'll have to play the 2 seed. Now, who that is, we don't know. We'll talk about the playoff previews in a hot second here. But you'd be concerned as a Packer fan or a Packer player or a Packer coach that things are not going your way right now. So those are the 5 games that took place so far. I will do a quick look back at last week, how we did. It was terrible. The Lions crushed me, and it was a huge swing. Yet another huge swing for me this year. I just have not been able to put anything together. I've already talked about the ills of my betting style for this year. Too many parlay bets, not enough reliance on single game bets or, 2-game parlays or whatever you want to do. I keep doing these 3-game parlays, all spread parlays. I had a money line. I'm doing a ton of leg money line bets, and I've come up one short here and there. It's all of the correlated bets that have been just crushing my wallet. And last week was a real gut punch because while I had really, well, I did ramp up my betting volume a little bit during the year, but I hadn't gone percentage wise as crazy as I did last week. But it was an opportunity that I was drooling at it. And so I went for it. It was wrong and it crushed me because the win would have done wonders to get back almost close to even, which was unfortunate, but was not meant to be. So we'll take a quick look back there, and then we'll just get into the games. Again, abbreviated show. My brother's not here. I'm down in Florida, Jensen Beach, all the rest of that stuff. So let's get into it here. I don't even have my sounder, so we're just going to go into first down. First down. Actually, do I have it? I might have it here. And I use EV Mux for my studio here, but I usually have a pod center with soundboards set up on either side, and that's what I end up to play it. And I had at one point put a bunch of music and sounders and stuff into the EV Mux program, but I don't have the first down here. So anyway, the first down is a review of last week. So like I was saying, when we look back at last week, it was favored to the dogs. They were 9-7 against the favorites, and of those 9, 7 of the dogs outright won. So again, dog money lines making people a ton of money. The teases were way better for the dogs than for the favorites. Favorites got even. The dogs were 13-3. Overs and unders were 10-6 in favor of the overs. Both of the teases were pretty solid. Overs were better at 14-2 to the unders 11-5. Trifectas, big road favorites, home dogs. There was really no trends in any of those. They're all kind of split right down the middle. We did have 2 pros versus Joe's games, which again, we haven't had a lot of them this year, but the pros were 2-0 in those games. And then halftime losses were 10-3. And all 3 of the halftime losses came in the BT games before Thursday, or I should say BS, all the BS games before Sunday. And that was your Rams Seahawks Thursday night game, and then the 2 Saturday games, which were Eagles Commanders and then Packers Bears. All of the winning teams were down at halftime. So the Seahawks came from behind, the Eagles came from behind, and then also the Bears. So that was 10-3 again in favor for the halftime leads. And then Chris and I was 11-5. Chris was 7-9. Sharps were 6-7. Tickets and money pool were both 11, and then either 5 or 4 losses depending on which one you won. But solid for the tickets and the money pool. Solid for me at 11-5. My brother and the Sharps were under 500. But what we do best or worst in this pod is gamble. And so that brings us to what we really care about, and that is where our performance was. That is the remaining schedule for the NFL. We'll get to that in a hot second, but here's where our performance landed. So, like I mentioned, last week was rough. I had 42-30 going into the week. I ended up betting 1,200 because it brought me to an even 3,000, and then the Lions just rocked me. I had them in my teaser, and then my 2 money line parlays. And my money line parlays were both a 7 and a 6. Was it 7 here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 and 6 team money line parlays. I hit every one in both of those bets minus Detroit. So my teaser went down, and both of my money line parlays went down. Had Detroit won, they just had to win by 1 single point, because everywhere I had it, either money line or half a point, that would have been a swing of $3,800. That would have put me right under $8,000, and it would have been a whole different ballgame. As it was, I lost 3,000 where I stand. You can see it right there in the margin. Horrific year for me. My brother ended up, he put down 14. He pulled back 17-15. So he was positive about $300. So that brings him over. Again, this does not factor in our open season bets. So he is positive on the year now, just 2.5%. He's had a way bigger lead. He's come back down to earth, but he's still positive going into the playoffs, which is solid. And now some of his long season bets are coming in, as he had Chicago for the NFC North. They won. I forget what he bet, so I have to look at what that is. But so that is turns into profit now for him. So that'll get added to his bankroll. And then Survivor, he had Houston, I had New Orleans. We're both out of it. He had 3 losses over the year, I had 2, but we're doing it to see how we go all the way to the end here. And as of now, New Orleans, Houston, 2 losses for me, 3 losses for him. It's not terrible. It's not terrible. Again, it's not. It doesn't matter because we're both out of it. He was out of it early with Green Bay. I got fancy with Carolina a couple of weeks back, and then I ended up getting fancy again with Cleveland, and I got let down in both spots when cooler heads should have prevailed, and I should not have thrown the dice on those 2 teams in those spots. But whatever. Like I said, schedule here is where the schedule is riding out week 17 and 18. We've had 4 of these teams knocked out. We started this several weeks ago when all these teams were live. The Colts are now out. The Chiefs are out. Cowboys out. Lions are now out after their loss. They were probably out anyway. And then we've had the games with the Ravens, the Texans, the Chargers take place, and the Packers. And so now what we're looking at primarily here, as the Broncos, Eagles, and Bears have all locked up their divisions, is what happens with the East, the South. I think the North is pretty much done. I do not see the Steelers losing both of the next 2 weeks. But maybe they do. If they win today versus the Browns, it's over. Game, set, match. They win the North. The West, look, the Chargers, the way that they're playing right now, and then they got to go against the Broncos. And the Broncos have locked up the West, so maybe they go easy next week. But I imagine the Chargers probably land with the final number 7 seed in the AFC. Which means, this Bills-Eagles game is pretty big. The Pats with this 1-game lead with the Jets and the Dolphins left pretty much assures them of the East again, but nothing is assured in the 2025 NFL season. That is for sure. The Jags here have this game against the Colts. Colts obviously now out of it, riding with Phillip Rivers under center. The Jags win today, and then they got the Titans. I think you're looking at Steelers, Jags, Pats, Broncos as division winners. And I'm not breaking any ground there. Probably that would be what everybody would think. We will see how it plays out here. The seeding for the wild cards is really where things get interesting, and the matchups that they could bring on. And we'll look at that in 2 seconds. Let's go over to the NFC. You have the Bears locked up the North, the Eagles locked up the East, the Bucks and the Panthers. This is basically going to come down to next week, unless crazy shit happens here this week where let's say the Bucks lose to the Dolphins, the Panthers win versus the Seahawks, and then there's a 2-game differential, and that's it. Panthers win. So you have the West where the Seahawks are in command, but 49ers are not that far behind. And then the Rams, who looked to be the best team in the league just a couple of weeks ago before we had a couple of hiccups and Devontae Adams injury. My voice is breaking here. Pardon me. And now the Seahawks are in front with the 49ers kind of breathing down their necks. Not over for the 49ers yet. Now, what's weird with the 49ers is that so long as they stay on one of the 2 polar sides of the playoff picture, being either the number 1, 2 seed or the final number 7 wild card seed, that things look good for them in the playoffs. And again, we'll show you the matchups in a second. Where they don't want to go, and where nobody wants to go, is kind of in the middle there. The Packers are going to end up getting the final seed, and they could very well have an NFC North matchup against the Bears in week 1. And so let's look at the playoffs. As again, my voice is cracking. My wife just came into the room. She's looking at me like, what is going on with your voice? I don't know. It's just cracking. That's all I got for you. I got nothing. And she's looking at me now like, what a disaster. People listen to this shit?
No, they don't.
No, they don't. AFC, we've got here are the teams ranked in order. These are the division winners, the AFC and NFC, and then you have who their opponents would be in round 1. So as you see here, Broncos locking up the one we get a bye, as it would for any one seed. Again, not breaking ground. That's why this podcast is what it is. The Pats right now would be 2. They would end up taking on the Chargers. So the Chargers here are in a spot where you probably don't want to be because of these 3 places to go. I think the 2 I'd like to go the least would be into New England and into Pittsburgh. And of those 2 places I would like to go into least, I would probably like to face the Pats less. I'd rather face the Steelers. I still don't believe in the Steelers, but that's just me. So the Chargers now are lined up with the Patriots. The Jags would end up having an AFC battle against their division rival with the Texans. Jags, Texans there, and then Steelers, Bills. So again, 3 tough games here, the way that it's lined up right now. The NFC has got the Seahawks with their bye. And remember, I mentioned the 49ers who are down here as a 7th seed. And we'll look at that as we go down here. Seahawks had the bye. Bears would end up taking on the Packers. So you've got an NFC North rivalry there for round 1. You have Eagles, Rams, another tough game. And then Panthers, 49ers. 49ers just step into it there by having to go on and take the Panthers, who they could easily beat. 49ers are one of the better teams. So if the 49ers can somehow take the number 1 seed, they got to bye. If they sit here in last place, they end up landing, or not last place, but here in this, the 4-5 or whatever, they end up taking on the Panthers. So actually, that completely kills what I said before because I said they were in last place. So I should have went to this slide first. Packers in last place are guaranteed to play the 2, whoever that is. Let's say it's the Bears. The Eagles will end up playing the next seed, and then you have this one in the middle. So the 49ers want to stay, what I was trying to say, in the spot that they're at, or win and get the 1 seed. The Panthers is the game that everybody wants. I think that's probably the best way to say it. And you can just rewind and eliminate all 30 seconds of what I just said because I said it horrifically bad. Panthers are who everybody wants. 49ers are lined up there right now. They end up winning the NFC West. They end up getting the bye. They're better off because they don't have to play a game. But if they had to play a game, this is where they like to be. The Bears and Packers right now, the Bears would welcome that matchup. I think the Eagles-Rams is the toughest out of the gate. I mean, neither of these 2 teams want to face each other at all. The last thing you want to do, the Rams are a little banged up, and the Eagles probably should feel the Rams. The Rams should have beat them last year if it wasn't for the snow. So that's how things are lined up right now in the NFC and the AFC. I'm just going to get off this whole thing anyway because, truth be told, I botched that whole thing. I really did. Going from how I was talking about these teams, saying the 49ers were in last place. Oh, God, just a disaster. I don't do podcasts on the road during vacation with hairdos like this because it just lands you in the shit. In the shit. So let's go into the games and wrap this up. Usually second down, we do the big games, but I think I'm just going to rip through all of these games and just give you our picks. So, but if you wanted to know the big games of this week, for sure, Seahawks Panthers, which is in the 1:00 slate. Buccaneers Dolphins is big because the Buccaneers need it. Jags Colts are, for positioning, at least for the Jaguar side. Bills Eagles. You want your 2 big games or 3 big games: Seahawks Panthers, Bills Eagles, 49ers Bears. And so those would be the 3 that we would have drilled down on. We're not going to bore you with that right now. We'll just get into all the games. So the first game, like I mentioned, was Seahawks Panthers. This game in Carolina. Seahawks favored by 7.5 points. 42.5 is the over/under. My brother and I will both take the Seahawks. Tickets and the money are on the Panthers, while the sharps are on Seattle. So we're going to try to be sharp here. One of the 11 home dog games for this week. Crazy, but 11 home dogs for the week. This one was one of those. There was actually 3 to this point. They were all on Christmas Eve, or not Christmas Eve, Christmas, and they went 2-1. So the Vikings and the Chiefs obviously won, and the Commanders ended up losing that one. So Commanders game actually was not only a home dog, Commanders that lost, but it was a trifecta on the side of the Cowboys that ended up winning. Go figure. And so we go back to the 1 o'clock slate. Seahawks, both for Chris and I. Next up is going to be the Bengals hosting the Cardinals. The Bengals favored by 7 points. Over under here is 53.5. It is a trifecta game. Everybody in on the Bengals, as are Chris and I. Next game will be down in Miami. Dolphins hosting the Buccaneers. Buccaneers favored on the road here by 5.5. So you have, like the Seahawks, a big road favorite. Right now, this is it Pros Joe's game? No, both the tickets and the money pool are on Tampa Bay in this one, while the sharps are on the Dolphins. My brother is going to join my youngest Mason, and he's going to take the Dolphins in this one, but I have the Buccaneers. Jaguars are going to be on the road taking on the Colts. This game is Jaguars by 5.5 currently, so you have another big road favorite. 48.5 is the over-under. The sharps are in on the Colts, while the tickets and the money are on the Jags. A decent amount, too. 77% of the tickets and 85% of the Jaguars. So as I pick the Jaguars, that doesn't make me feel easy. I don't like to be on heavy favorites like that, but that's where we land. Next game is going to be in East Rutherford. New York Jets taking on the Patriots. Patriots are 13.5 point favorite here. 42.5 is the over-under. Big road favorite. Again, trifecta game. Everybody in on the Patriots. Give my brother and I both the Pats. Next game is in Tennessee. The Saints are a 2.5 point favorite on the road against the Titans. 38.5 is the over-under. Trifecta game. Everybody in on the Saints. Chris and I will follow that trifecta lead. Final game of the 1 o'clock games is the Browns-Steelers game in Cleveland. Steelers, 3-point road favorite. 34.5 is the over-under. With the win, obviously, the Steelers lock up the division. And the only way that they lose the division is that they lose both today and tomorrow, and the Ravens win next week. Hard to believe, but I think that the Steelers are probably really trying to pour it on to the Browns here, who have had a terrible season. And the issue with the Browns is they don't have much guidance going forward. Is it member club? Like, what are they doing? They still don't know. So I think the Steelers try to lock it up here. Give me the Steelers in the 3. Give my brother the same. Tickets and the money pool are in on Pittsburgh as well. Sharps will lean toward Shador and Cleveland. I didn't say the over-under there. 34.5. That's low. That's a low over-under. But you're looking at these two teams. What do you expect? Lowest over-under of the week, by the way. Let's go to the 2. They gave you 2 games for 4 o'clock, which is like, really? That's what you give us 2 games for 4 o'clock? One of which is this one. The Raiders hosting the Giants. The battle for the cellar, where the Raiders can't bench or put on IR enough players. I mean, nor can the Giants. Giants are like, oh, yeah, we don't need a line. Let's put them all on the injured list. So what do you do here? I joked on Twitter. I said last week, Zoltar told me this game is going to be a 0-0 tie. Never thought that was actually going to come true, but it very well might be. Giants are a 2.5 point road favorite against the Raiders. It was 1.5. It went up to 2.5 because the Raiders are just trying to lose this game. Giants will try to lose this game too, but at a certain point, you can't compete with what the Raiders are doing. Not to mention Jackson Dart's getting thrown around in all of this ridiculous trade talk. And one would think that he probably might just try to throw up 300 yards and 4 TDs just to tell everybody to go fuck themselves. Because why are you putting me in trade talk when I've had a pretty solid rookie year? Even though, yeah, sure, I've got to do something about the concussions and putting myself at risk. But those things are manageable. Yeah, a lot of his performance on the field, though, is there's just intangibles that other quarterbacks can't see. For Mendoza, that's what you want? You want to trade? You get the number 1 seed. You want to trade me and take Mendoza? No thanks. So he has a possibility here of going off. But then again, it's the Giants. They've got very little talent everywhere. So, again, they were 1.5-point favorites. Now, 2.5-point favorites. 41.5 is the over-under. Sharps are in on the Raiders. The tickets and the money pool are in on the Giants. Give me the Giants. Give my brother the Raiders. And then the big 4 o'clock game, should you not be in the New York area, which I hope it doesn't get blocked out for New York. I'm in Florida, so I'm okay. But if you're a Giants Jets fan sitting in Jersey and New York, and for some reason your doubleheader is 2 1 o'clock games, and then the Giants Raiders at 4, I might break my TV. But Bills hosting the Eagles is the big 4 o'clock game. Bills favored by 1.5 at home. 44.5 is the over/under. The Sharps don't have a lean, and the tickets are split. So there's only one stat to give you here, and that is the money pool. 59% of the money is in on Buffalo. Give my brother and I the Bills as well. So then we go to Sunday Night Football, where the 49ers are going to be hosting the Bears. Another good game. The Bears have their side locked up. They could rest people just to, try to get healthy, but there is seeding involved here, so I don't imagine you're going to see a lack of effort from Chicago. 49ers are obviously trying to grab the number 1 seed as well, so they're going to be giving their best effort across the board. Great game for 8 o'clock on Sunday night. 49ers favored by 3, 52.5 is the over-under. Sharps don't have a lean, but the tickets and the money are in on the Bears. Give my brother and I San Francisco. And the final game of the week, it's not a terrible game, but not all that interesting. The Rams, their future is going to be dictated by the time they play this game, because if the Seahawks win and the 49ers win, the Rams, their hope of winning the NFC West are probably all but gone. They'll fall into it. It might all be gone, but let's see. Seahawks lose the Panthers, the 49ers lose the Bears, the Rams beat the Falcons, then it could be interesting. But if they end up in a position where this game doesn't have a whole lot of impact, you could see things like rest. Who the hell knows? But right now, the Rams are favored by 8.5 over the Falcons. So a big road favorite here for Los Angeles. Falcons, obviously, a shit year. They played okay in spots, but for the most part, just a lost year, which started really when they hired Raheem Morris, who had proven not to be a great coach. And they should let him go immediately after the season's done. We'll see what happens there. But the Sharps don't have a lean. 71% of the money and 73% of the money pool are both in on the Falcons. My brother and I are in on the Falcons too. Obviously, those numbers will change, though, since it's a Monday night game. And once everybody wins or loses throughout the Sunday afternoon, then you'll see those numbers start to slide. 49.5 is the over-under there. And that is the final 11th home dog of the weekend. So, but I think the Rams eke it out. Again, 8.5, though, is too many points for my taste. So that'll bring us to our final down, which is our wagering. And once I can find the overlay and click on the overlay, then 4th down. So, like I said, last week was pretty rough for my brother and I. While my best bet came in with San Francisco, my survivor came in with New Orleans. I was 4-1 in my super bets. I was all over Detroit when it came down to the money. And so that just blew up in my face. My brother was positive, so it wasn't a nightmare for him. But that brings us to week 17, where I've got a measly $3,000 in my betting bankroll. And then my brother is somewhere around 92.40. He might have it a little different in his records, but I've got 92.40 for him going into this week. So let's start with our best bets. Oddly enough, I loved San Francisco last week. I love San Francisco this week, as does my brother. So we're both in on our best bets with San Francisco. Survivor, he is going to take Cincinnati at home. I'm going to take Jacksonville on the road. Our super contest picks, I'm going to go with the following. Chargers, they lost. Packers, they lost. 0-2. Giants, Buffalo, San Francisco. So my first two locks, no good. We'll see what happens with the next three. Again, Giants, Buffalo, San Francisco. My brother has no games that have taken place yet. So he took New England, Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, Buffalo, and Cincinnati. And so let's go to our wagers. Here's what I ended up doing. I had a bet in already. It lost. I like the Chargers. I liked Green Bay. They both lost. I had put $100 on that parlay. No good. So in the toilet it goes. I need my sound effects. I will do the next two. Give me the Giants, Buffalo, San Francisco. Those are my remaining three Super Contest picks. Give me $100 on those three teams for a 3-team parlay because I like to lose money. And then give me a 3-team teaser where I am going to do Seattle, Cincinnati, and Jacksonville. So Seattle comes down to 1.5, Cincinnati comes down to 1, and Jacksonville comes down to 0.5 point. And give me $800 on that. So that'll pull me down to $2,000, of which 100 of my gambling is already burnt and toast. My brother, meanwhile, will do the following. He'll do a money line wager, which is already decided. Houston, cha-ching, and Green Bay. So he ended up losing his first money line parlay. His next money line parlay will be Buffalo, San Francisco, and the Rams. Give him $300. That'll pull back about $1,100 on the return. Then he'll take a field goal parlay, 4 teams: Seattle, New England, Cincinnati, Tampa Bay. So again, Seattle, New England, both on the road, Tampa Bay also on the road, and Cincinnati at home. All of those teams by 2.5 points. And that will be a bet of $250 to pull back $775. And then finally, his big bet of the week will be his best bet. Now, he had San Fran at minus 2.5. So I don't know if he's adjusting this and buying 0.5 point, or his book that he went to. We usually pull all of our lines from FanDuel, but he occasionally goes and looks at Hard Rock to do this. So I don't know if Hard Rock had it at minus 2.5. Regardless, I'm just going to give him at 2.5, $1,000 to pull back 17.15 on that. So I think he would have bought a point there, or bought the hook, I should say. I think I'll have to look, but regardless, he's got 1,000 in on San Francisco minus 2.5, and that's all she wrote for week 17. Again, abbreviated show on the road. Actually, I had started recording this first time my wife came in, and only to see my youngest son come in for the second time. But I've wasted enough of your time. Enjoy the rest of your vacations. Happy New Year, and all the rest of that stuff. Bet responsibly. 1-800-GAMBLER if you feel like you're going overboard. And I will talk to all of you